Well, thanks so much for tuning into the trade setup right here on BloombergQuint Live. I'm Nitrite. Good morning to all of you, and I hope all of you are doing safe. That's essentially the first and the biggest wish, really, for the day, for the week, for the month. Now, keep in mind, it's an interesting day of trade today. Not so much from a global perspective as usual, but the Bank of England will publish the latest rate decision today, and which could be interesting from a Europe perspective, but it might have some implications for the European markets, and therefore this is something that all of us should keep in mind. There's a speculation that the bank may signal a slowdown of asset purchases. Now, this will be a big thing, right? We haven't seen too many large economy central banks speak about tapering. BOE could well be the first one, or they may signal, right? Not necessarily do it, but a signal, and that might be enough to set the cat amongst the pigeons in those markets at least. Remember, for India, what matters is what the Fed does, and not necessarily what BOE does. But like I said, we've seen some emerging market central banks take an action on rates, etc. We haven't seen a large central bank, at least I don't remember recollect seeing a large central bank speak about asset purchases tapering. So this will be important. Anyways, let's talk about the world markets. US markets came off a little bit. They were doing okay, but I think NASDAQ came off. Tech led the rally, the sell-off, so to say. As you can see in this chart, it kind of tapered down towards the close, and while the Dow ended in the green, the S&P ended flat, and the NASDAQ marginally in the red. The futures are also a ho-hum, really. Multiple signals across the spectrum on the pharma side, on the tech side in the US market. So nothing too dramatic, just about a flattish move, and whatever is functioning of Asia this morning is also probably showing mixed cues, some in the green marginally, some marginally in the red. So it's a pretty flattish move that we have for the Asian bourses, save for the markets which will be coming back from a holiday. The key, viewers, is that the headline index may not move too much. It might essentially be below the indices. Actually, let's get the SGX Nifty up on the screen, and that is showing, I mean, don't get fooled by this large spike. It's just about 1/3%, which is essentially a fairly flat kind of a move at the start of the trading day. Now, the interesting thing is what happened, and I'm not in the habit of saying that I told you so, but I essentially borrow stuff from technical experts, right? If they write a lot of things, I read them, I try and understand, and then try and bring them whatever I think is the best, right? So the last 3 days we've been talking about how the Bank Nifty holding on to 32,000 could be a key pivot, and I think it managed to do that yesterday as well. We closed at about 32,750 or thereabouts. I'm not saying this means that the banks will really have a big move, but till that happens, maybe the case for a really sharp bearish move downwards for the Nifty and the Bank Nifty is not warranted. So the Bank Nifty firmly holding about 32,000. I think at the broader end of the spectrum, and we all know the reason, I'll bring it up later on as well, but the PSU banks are likely to be the key stocks at the broader end. So do watch out for almost all of the PSU banking stocks. They could be the key movers today. And somehow, viewers, you've got to pay attention to what's happening at the soft commodity space. I mean, yes, sugar is kind of known, and then the stocks have moved, but we've seen the yarn-based companies doing very well in the last couple of days. There has been some tremendous smart money moving into these stocks, and you might want to look at those as well. Now, just keep this in mind that when the markets are expensive and the headline numbers are not moving, people have to have money-making ideas. They will go down the barrel, look at companies or sectors which are showing earnings promise and are not trading expensive. Sugar companies trade at 4 to 6 times price to earnings multiples, right? And which is why you're seeing this traction, because people believe it will no longer be cyclical. Similarly, for textile companies, I was talking to an expert yesterday who was telling me that I got a clue from a couple of smart traders, and then I was talking to an expert who was telling me that how the inventory gains for the yarn companies might actually be pretty strong this time around as well. This is not a new phenomenon, by the way, but it's been playing out for the last 4 or 5 months, which is why you've seen the Vardhman textile promoters buying, right, repeatedly from the open market. So watch out for some of the softer commodity pockets. They could be very, very interesting to monitor. There is earnings growth there, potential earnings growth there, and the valuations are in your favor. Now, what's the big thing for today? I think in terms of Nifty earnings, there will be eyes out for Tata Consumer, simply because it's an expensive FMCG name, therefore important to monitor. Hero MotoCorp, well, the expectations are out there, so I don't need to really lay it out too much. But remember, the last 10 days, they had a planned shutdown for each of their plants for 4 days, and they've extended it until May 10th. So the queues for March notwithstanding, I meant for April they had a planned shutdown. The commentary that they give for April and May, because the last 20-25 days have been a kind of a production loss, would be important. Amongst the broader end of the spectrum, Blue Star would be interesting, simply because air conditioning companies have seen rising costs, and because of the lockdown, the Q1, which is the prime demand quarter, has been impacted, and therefore it'll be interesting. I'll be watching out for Praj and Sundaram fasteners as well. And Heikel, some smart people have spoken about how Heikel is a great API stroke, not API really, but a chemical play. So therefore watch out for that one as well. The earnings and commentary could be interesting. The balance sheet would be very important for Heikel. So those are some names that you should watch out for. FIs continue to sell, so I'm not bringing that up. Till now, in the month of May, I think they've sold about 5,500 crores, so that continues. What are the stocks to watch on open? There are a few. I'm going to spend some time on the two larger names that came out with earnings. So Tata Steel, their Q4 FY21 operational performance beat the Bloomberg consensus estimates. Now revenues were at higher compared to estimates. Similarly, margins higher compared to estimates, and the reported net profit came off. But this is the important piece, and which is why I've chosen the JP Morgan note, because it actually gives you the correct picture. This is the reported numbers, by the way, which is fine. But look at this. So JP Morgan says that there's a large beat in Q4, consolidated EBITDA, and the underlying PAT, and not the reported PAT, is above estimates. The underlying PAT doing much better for Tata Steel than the reported numbers, because the reported numbers had gone up. So the underlying PAT and the consolidated EBITDA were above estimates. They are saying that given the large price hike seen in April and May, they believe that the first half should be very, very strong for Tata Steel. The key highlight, according to them, was the large net debt reduction, with FY21 numbers at about 29,400 crores. Now they're saying that FY22 will not have the similar debt reduction, but they might reduce debt by about $1 billion, is what JPM is saying, and that should be incrementally positive. They see little downside risk to the current domestic steel prices for the next 2 or 3 months. This is the most important line to my mind, viewers. When you're playing steel and commodity, you got to figure out what will happen 3 months out. Remember, I was talking about it this few days back, that you got to keep a keen eye out on what China is doing. Now, again, JP Morgan's thesis might change if China really makes a move, but ceteris paribus, they see little downside risks to steel prices, and therefore that should be incrementally positive for continuing your positions if you have one. The numbers are pretty good, really. So there's no reason. I mean, I cannot say whether you should buy or sell a stock, but incrementally, the valuations are a lot more expensive than what they were, but there's no bad news right now. That's the sum and substance. JP Morgan sees overall scope for further domestic price hikes as well over June and July, so that should be interesting. So no complaints. CLSA note was pretty positive too. Do watch out for Tata Steel today. The other one that you should watch out for is Deepak Nitrite. I've taken quarter-on-quarter numbers out here on Deepak Nitrite because the last quarter would have been impacted. Quarter-on-quarter, the revenues for Deepak Nitrite up about 18.5%. EBITDA up 35% at 454 crores. This is quarter-on-quarter EBITDA jumping up. Operating margins, 27% was the Q3 number, 31% this quarter. And profit after tax was 215, and this 290. I'm not even comparing it to the last year, because that is just abnormally high compared to the last year. But even quarter-on-quarter, after having a strong Q3, they've complemented it with a very strong Q4. They have 2-3 segments, viewers, but basic chemical segment grew about 25%. The phenolic segment, which is the main kicker, grew about 25%. And the margins for both of these segments on that kind of revenue growth have expanded, which is why you're seeing such an exceptional performance. So this is one more company that will do really well in stock that should do really well in the session today. The FY21 EBITDA and PAT were up by 21 and 26%. That tells you a story about how well they've done in the quarter, in the year actually. And I think this is one stock that should react positively. If it does react positively, you know why. I've just enumerated the reasons why it's done. It could do well. So keep an eye out for this one. By the way, it's no longer as cheap as it was about 6 months ago. The valuations have really ramped up. But I think the performance is pretty good, and therefore it should have a positive reaction. Adani Green, the one Adani name that actually has done really well on the quarterly performance numbers this time around. Adani Ports had some issues. Adani Total had some issues. Enterprise actually did well, but some of the others didn't. But Adani Green, Revenues up 42%, net profit up 86%, EBITDA margins at 63% versus 32%. So exceptional performance by this one. Let's wait and watch. It's a terribly expensive stock, but the runway for growth is probably good, and which is why you might see some traction here too. Though just keep in mind, it's just an abysmally expensive stock, so you have to bear that in mind. You need to know the company inside out if you're taking a long bet on this one or a short bet on this one. There are other companies like Seat which didn't come out with the best of numbers, so ho-hum kind of a performance. And then just keep in mind, viewers, I've not included it out here, but Oracle Financial Services, after the numbers, has declared a 200 rupees dividend. So OFSS or Oracle Financial Services should be in focus too. IDBI Bank, and this brings PSU banks and banks firmly in focus. The CCA has approved the strategic divestment of the bank along with the transfer of management control. I don't need to speak more than this in this one, the details, etc. This alone should be viewed positively and constructively. The stock has not done much over the last 1 month. I was looking at the last 1 year prices. The peak was 50 rupees. I'm not advocating that is what the stock will do. There's a lot that could happen by the time the cup hits the lips. But keep that in mind that this should keep PSU banks and IDBI Bank firmly in focus. Watch out for Cipla as well, and Tata Motors. Cipla, I think Roche received the emergency use authorization in India for the antibody cocktail used in treatment of COVID-19. Roche will do this in partnership with Cipla. Pharma is anyways in focus, viewers, so Cipla could be interesting. And lastly, there's this news around Tata Motors. I don't know if this moves the needle on the stock, but I'm bringing it out. This is one name that I'm confused about, but I'm bringing it out. CCI investigation against Tata Motors led to an outcome that there's a prima facie case of abuse of dominance and anti-competitive conduct in the dealership agreements. The dealership agreement clauses can create barriers to new entrants. This is the observation of the CCI order. The clauses can result in foreclosing of competition by hindering entry into the market, and therefore the CCI has directed a DG investigation into this. Now, is this bad news? Yes. Is this as big a stock moving news? Maybe not. But I'm not completely convinced about one way or the other. But I'm bringing it out so that you know what the news around Tata Motors is. So viewers, this is the long and short of the trade setup today. Lots of things, but soft commodities, some specialty chemicals like Deepak Nitrite and a couple of others, and Tata Steel firmly in focus for the day today. Trade safe. Risk reward is almost 50-50. Thanks so much for tuning in to the trade setup today.